On this episode of the Digital Photography Cafe Show, Sigma receives Best Lens Award, medium format from Sony, and Nikon automates AF fine-tuning, and much more. Stay tuned.
The Digital Photography Cafe Show is brought to you by Focus Pyramid, the autofocus lens calibration tool for your camera.
Welcome to the Digital Photography Cafe Show. Join host Trevor Current and Joseph Cristina as they serve up the hottest photography news and commentary.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This is episode 213. I'm Joseph Cristina here with my co-host Trevor Current. Hey Trevor, how you doing?
Hey, we are back. How's it going?
Welcome back, my friend. Another week.
Yes, another week. We had a beautiful weekend up here too, so I'm really, I'm excited. I got outside, got some fresh air, and now it's good to be back to work.
Yeah, I'm a little burnt up. Yesterday we went out to the beach for, a couple hours, but in sunny South Florida, guys, the sun is so brutal. It's like 100% UV, it's like the index is 10 or something all the time. It's just so hot. And you could just feel like that radiation crawling on you. So I was literally out there for, I would say maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I got like roasty,
Oh yeah, so, yeah. A few hours in the Florida sun is brutal. Yeah, I mean up here Saturday it was pretty warm and the sun was pretty tough. I definitely got a little pink. I had sunscreen on and all that good stuff. Got to have the bug spray too because we're out working. The bugs are just like freaking out now. They're just popping up everywhere, and then Sunday it was quite a bit cooler to the point where we could wear a long sleeve shirt, like a t-shirt, and it was nice. It was just great being outside. We did some bike riding with the kids and played some basketball and some softball.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
That's good stuff. Yeah, I've been doing I think I'm on like vlog number 3 now. I've been trying to do a vlog every week, at least 1 or 2, maybe even 3 sometimes. And It's been going pretty well. It's been a lot of fun to be able to communicate with everybody. And, outside of the show, just like on topics I just want to talk about, some kind of rants or something I want to get a little bit more detailed in. So that's been a lot of fun for me lately.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I've been watching them. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So, but anyways, kind of get into let's say the nitty gritty today. The TIPA awards came out, right? And Sigma is doing pretty well for lenses.
Yeah, they are. The TIPA is the Technical Image Press Association. This time of the year, you see this little logo on all the blogs and all the magazines and stuff like that. It's kind of like the industry standard in the photo biz for like high quality products. It's like kind of like the Consumer Reports ratings for everything else.
Yeah,
it's kind of along those lines. And they got an award for Best DSLR Telephoto Lens for the Sigma 50 to 100 millimeter f1.8 DC HSM art lens, which is
that's a nice lens.
Yeah, the real nice.
And it's fast glass, right? And that's the thing that I always tell you guys. If you're looking for glass, get fast glass because it just you get that beautiful blur in the background, number 1. But number 2, if you want to shoot, like this is a 1.8 piece of glass. If you want to shoot it just rock solid, you shoot it, let's say 2.0 or maybe 2.2, somewhere right around that area, and you have tack sharp images, and you still have that fast glass that you can shoot, let's say in a wedding or something. So, and they've been doing a lot of that, and I give Sigma a lot of credit for that. A lot of these companies, they'll do, the meandering, F. So you got, like F 3.5 to 4.6 or something like that. No, they're doing a lot of straight glass, and I like that. And obviously TIPA likes it too, right?
Well, yeah, and these are their high quality art lenses. I mean, these are good stuff. I do like them. Some of the images I've seen created, I mean, just the sharpness and and everything is just really, really nice. They're 24 to 35 millimeter f2 wide angle that won an award, and their 20 millimeter f1.8 won an award as well. So 3 lenses won awards. So that's really great.
Yeah, that 20 millimeter is a 1.4, and that is quick.
Oh yeah,
that is real. That's really quick. And I would just looking at the glass and looking at the images, it's just, it's, I would have to say, there's a lot of people, I get questions sometimes that say, okay, what piece of glass should I buy, or what should I buy?
Right.
And, it's always, well, go with your manufacturer. Let's say you're a Nikon guy, go with the Nikon stuff, go with the higher end Nikon glass. If you're a Canon guy, get that little red ring.
Yeah, get the L lens,
get the L glass. And, but honestly, Sigma is just there. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to try to figure out which one is a Sigma, let's say 50 millimeter to a 50 off a Canon. I mean, it's really, really tight.
Yeah.
And the price difference is there. I mean, it is a definite price difference. So if you're looking to purchase glass, don't forget about the third parties, guys. You don't always have to get your manufactured spec glass, your best high-end glass.
Right.
Because this stuff does the job, and it does it well. Like me, one of my favorite pieces of glass out there is a Tamarind lens.
Yeah,
and that's a Tamarind 90. I mean, it's so blistering sharp. It's the sharpest piece of glass that I have out of, tens of thousands of dollars of Canon glass. So,
right.
This happens sometimes. So
yeah, definitely want to look at the third parties. I mean, you don't necessarily have to stay with your manufacturer. I mean, that goes for Sony glass as well. I mean, last week we talked about the Vello adapter for the Sony, so you could use your Canon or your Nikon glass on there. But Vello also makes other gear, other third-party accessories, one of which is their BG-S3 battery grip for the Sony bodies. And there is a recall on those, my friends.
Yep, they had an uh-oh.
Yeah, they had an uh-oh. That's right.
So, guys, in these grips, majority of them have like a little chip in there, and the chip gives various information back to the camera body. Some of it has to do with how much power is left, how many batteries are in it. Let's say if it's a dual battery grip that has two, it sends back information. Well, according to what they were saying, all these grips made on and before February 10th are affected with this problem. And if you have a problem with that grip, you can return it to them, and they will send out a brand new one. Now, these grips are not just for any of the Sony line. It's specifically for the A7 S2, as well as the A7 R2, and then just the A7 II period. So it's just basically the alpha line. So if you have one of these cameras and you do have one of the Vello battery grips, take a look at it, see if it was manufactured before that date. And if it is, just call them up. They'll send you out a new one. So, kudos to them. A lot of these companies, they find the issues and they correct them right away. And those are the companies that you want to work with, basically.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I'm not opposed to these third-party accessories either. I mean, I've got a third-party battery grip for my Canon, and it works great. And it was a fraction of the price of the actual Canon unit. So again, I mean, alternatives out there. I mean, not all of them are going to be great, but that's the beauty of Amazon and some of these other places, is that you can get them, and if it's not a quality product, send it back.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great for testing, though.
Yeah. So remember, guys, a couple of months back, Olympus put together this ad spot that was DSL arm.
Right.
And it was this guy that, carried around a DSLR for so long that his arm actually got bigger. His one arm got bigger and longer. And it was the funniest commercial. I mean, Olympus did a phenomenal job at putting that together. And it was hilarious. It was hilarious. It just showed, how, I mean, as photographers, if you're a photographer, let's say, that shoots a wedding and you're shooting for 4, 5, 6, 8 hours straight, and you have a DSLR in one arm, when you're done with the end of the day, especially if you have a bracket and lighting and all the rest of the stuff, when you get home, your arm hurts. I mean, forearm hurt, your forearm hurts, your arm, it's bad, right? So that's the whole premise behind that. Well, Sony did something similar, right, Trev?
Yeah, so Sony of Thailand created a video promoting their RX100 model, and it was kind of funny. It's kind of along the same lines of the big bulky DSLR, as opposed to the nice small compact camera. So,
mirrorless, right?
Yeah. So in their style of humor. They show this little guy, you know, with the glasses, and you see a strap around his neck, and he's like carrying or pulling along this big muscle, burly looking guy. And the whole idea is, what if your camera was a person? What would it look like? How would it act? So he's like pulling this big guy, and then he stands behind him, and he's looking over his shoulder, and he's like tilting his head, and then he's like patting him on the shoulder as if he was, you know, if it was the shutter button, and you hear the noises, you hear the, you know, and all this stuff. And, you know, and then you see it there in different scenarios where it won't focus, or it's low light and it's not doing good in there, or it buffering. You know, they show this one scene where he's like tapping on the shoulder, doing the, you know, multiple shots. And then you see him and he's like convulsing almost. You see his eyes rolling, and it's like, you know, buffering.
Yeah.
And then you see this cute girl walk by with this slender guy, and she's towing him by the arm and pointing at him, and, you know, towards people, and tapping him on the shoulder, and you hear toot, 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 and, you know, the guy's looking at him like, oh my God, what camera is that? That works so good.
That's right. And it's for the RX 100 Mark IV.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's just silly, but it's fun.
Yeah. But it you know, it kind of, it provokes the whole idea and the whole thought process of, God, do we really need such a bulky, massive camera to capture images? And today we really don't, right, guys? We really don't.
Yep.
You know, that the RX 100 Mark IV is probably, I would say, tier 2 for the vloggers. The guys, that's all they do is, let's say, shoot YouTube. They do a lot of vlogging,
right?
A lot of, you know, in-your-face personal stuff where they're holding up the camera and so they can see themselves, right? So the back end is a 180, so you can see yourself in the screen right above it.
Right.
You know, only second to the Canon 70D, as well as I think it's the G7 X, which is like, I would say number 1 or number 2. Right. So these cameras are really good for that. They're phenomenal, and they're so small, and they take such good images, and the autofocus is so quick. I mean, they're really, really phenomenal. Now, would you take, you know, a Sony RX 100 Mark IV to a wedding and go and shoot? Probably not, but that just shows where things are going and how great some of these small cameras are getting. I mean, you could shoot video with them all day long and get 60 frames per second, you know, high-end HD video that is just, you know, unbelievable, literally unbelievable. So, you know, like we were talking about before, Sony has really, really got it together as of late. And that goes into an interview that was done by a magazine. I think they were out of Russia, and they were talking to some of the engineers over there at Sony and discussing, you know, a bunch of topics. You know, some of them were, you know, like, what do you have internal? You know, why is it that your, you know, A6300, why doesn't it have IBIS? Why doesn't it have in-body image stabilization? And they're telling them, oh, it's because of size. We're trying to keep it smaller,
right. Small,
blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Right. But the one question that really kind of jumped out at me was the idea of medium format. And the question was, are you going to go medium format, Sony? Will you move into that space? And Trevor, we just talked about Sony and their relationship with Hasselblad last week, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're making the new sensor chip for the new Hasselblad that was just released, which is interesting. Obviously, Sony has the technology. They have the format down for high-end bodies. So they very easily could implement, you know, a medium format. Are the consumers, you know, not consumer level, but the professional levels, are they ready for a medium format Sony body? You know, maybe not, but if they're able to work this larger sensor into, you know, a format that we're already used to, that might really be something. And can they do that given the size constraints and stuff? I'm not really sure. But, you know, the idea is if the demand is there, then they'll do it. You know, if enough people are saying, I need more megapixels, I need larger format because of the type of work I'm doing, then, you know, of course they'll roll it out. But the technology is certainly there for them to do it, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Since they're making 100 megapixel for Hasselblad,
Sure.
as well as a 50 megapixel sensor for Hasselblad, they can definitely do it and put it into their own technology, put it into their own camera bodies, just literally within one iteration.
Right.
They could do it if they wanted to. It's just
That's right.
right now, like you said, is that demand there? There's no reason to do it if it's not. So we'll see what happens. I think sensors are going to keep getting bigger. I really do. Megapixels will keep growing. And, I think it's not just the number of megapixels, but the quality of those megapixels are going to keep going higher and higher. And as those megapixels get bigger, that means there's less noise and it doesn't have to work so hard because you have something this big that you're dealing with, that you're capturing the data, not the size of, a fingernail. It makes it a lot easier on them. I mean, the problem with it is data rates. How do we capture the pixels across that huge sensor this quick?
Right.
So as those data rates go higher, and as that technology for writing onto these SD cards become better and more efficient, we're going to be able to get higher and higher megapixels, I think, at that point.
Right. Exactly.
Anyways, guys, we got to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. As photographers, we all strive for the sharpest images possible. We follow all the rules, using low ISO, the fastest possible shutter speeds, and a tripod whenever possible, only to find soft images still being produced. While all these methods are valid, what you haven't been told is that from manufacturer to manufacturer, and even lens copy to lens copy, there are slight variances to the exact spot where light is being focused onto the sensor. These variances are what the focus pyramid quickly, easily, and cost-effectively addresses. This product was developed as a direct response to the many DIY products that were too complex to use and the commercially available products that were simply too expensive. The focus pyramid works with all major camera manufacturers, including Canon, Nikon, Sony, Olympus, and Pentax, to name a few. It will also work with all future DSLR cameras that allow for custom focus adjustments. The focus pyramid is a true form follows function undertaking. It allows the photographer to quickly calibrate their lenses either in studio or on location in a matter of minutes to help them achieve the absolute sharpest images possible. Simply place the focus pyramid on a flat surface. Align the camera, take a shot, and review your focus point. Adjust your camera settings to compensate for any variances. Repeat this process for each and every one of your lenses. That's it. Images go from soft to tack sharp in a matter of minutes. So grab a focus pyramid to take complete control of your DSLR's focusing system and start making better photographs today.
All right, we're back. And a company called Rollocam has just come to the market with a small pocket-sized dolly, let's say, motorized dolly that for your smaller formatted cameras, and it's called the Hercules.
Oh, Hercules!
Ironically enough.
Yes. You remember the old Professor Crump or whatever it was? That whole
that Eddie Murphy.
Eddie
bit.
Murphy, the nutty professor is like Hercules.
Yes. That
This
was
is
funny.
the funniest stuff. Yeah. So this is really, really interesting because, I've built these type of rigs myself because when I first started, they weren't really out there in the market. So I built my own with wheels that were off, rollerblade skates and all kinds of stuff, and really made some nice ones. But having something like this that's motorized, and small and lightweight, and will support like up to 10 pounds, I think they said. This is awesome because I'll give you a case use that's just really, really cool. So imagine you set this up, let's say in the back of a church, and you know that the ceremony is going to be running for 30 minutes, let's say, and you set it up there, you stick it in, because it's motorized now, to run for 30 minutes. So that means it'll take the entire 3 foot, let's say, and span that entire 3 feet in that 30 seconds. And you could set things up like that. And then you have this beautiful dolly pan right across, let's say, the church. You could even do it on, let's say, an arc, and do it this way instead of doing it straight. So it's not so linear. You make this nice, beautiful arc and you pan across the entire church. What an amazing, amazing piece of content that you can put in there as B-roll for your, God, I would call it A-roll at that point, I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. You could do a time lapse with it. You could do slow motion in little parts, all kinds of stuff you can do with it.
The time lapse is really cool. I saw some really nice examples of this on their website, and they show it like sitting on a bridge at nighttime, and they've got the traffic going below, and you've got all the blurs of the headlights and stuff. And, it's all put together in a fast moving video, but you see the car zipping by underneath, but then you see it panning very slowly to the right. And it's just a really great sense of depth of field and motion and stuff. And they've got some really great examples on their website that after you see the examples, if you've never used a piece of equipment like this, after you see the examples, your brain really starts going and you're like, oh my God, I could do this creatively and that. And really, really neat stuff. And the beauty is it runs continuously on a single AAA battery for like an hour.
So crazy.
Doing motion and like 48 hours doing time lapse.
Yeah, imagine,
which is just insane.
I mean, that's like got to be a little micro stepper motor in there to be able to do that on such little, such a small amount of juice. It's just really cool. So you're looking at 125, 160, and I think it's 250. And they have basically 3 different classes. They are all motorized, but they have different accessories, guys. So it is something to take a look at. I just thought this is just cool. This is cool stuff. And like you said, I mean, this gets your creative juices flowing. I mean, you think about it now, you're like, oh my God. Now imagine if I had this last week on this gig, or maybe you're doing you're doing a model shoot and you want to do some BTS stuff, right? You want to do some behind the scenes. Just set this thing up for 2-3 hours and then do a time lapse over time, panning across the scene. It's just cool. You can do a lot of cool stuff.
I mean, and for the dollar amounts, it's a very small investment to get into using a dolly. I really like it a lot. I mean, in fact, I don't know that I would have much of a need for it, but for $125, it's almost an impulse buy when it comes to photography equipment.
Yeah,
right?
it's like your GoPro that's sitting there rotting.
Perfect example, right?
I'm calling you out. You start using the damn GoPro.
I know. I've been saying I want to mount it to my RC truck, but
you should mount it to your dog, bro. That's what you need to do. Mount it to your dog.
Dog cam.
That's right. Let him wander around and just have it I don't know, make like a head like rig or something. Doggy cam or something. I don't know. So anyways, moving on, more cool stuff, right? More cool stuff. So Scandy has created or has a new way of turning your 360 photos basically into like 3D photos, 3D prints, right? So you can take a photo and then print it around a sphere all the way around. I mean, that's kind of neat, right? More cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, 360 is the hot new thing now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be HDR, then it was, HD video, and now it seems like, 360 video and 360 photography is becoming like the hot new thing, and there's companies popping up all over. We just talked about last week about Google and GoPro getting together to create this more cost-effective 360 rig.
Yeah, and Facebook and YouTube are supporting this stuff.
Supporting 360 videos, yep. So it's the big thing. So, Scandy, they just got like $1 million in seed funding.
So crazy.
And
that's
basically
awesome.
What they're doing, it's not. Basically what they're doing is they're taking your 360 pano, let's say. They have their own software app for iPhone, and Android's coming later this month. But basically, it gives you the ability to shoot with your camera. They tell you how to shoot, where to shoot, and you shoot this pano image. There's multiple images that are all stitched together, and then you upload it to their service, and they will actually print it out on a sphere. You know, it looks almost like a Christmas tree ball.
Right.
But you can hold it in your hand and rotate around it, top, bottom, left and right, all the way around. And then the bottom of the sphere is like cut off. It's kind of, it's got a flat section.
Right,
so you
right.
can sit it on something.
Yeah, if not, be rolling down your desk.
Right, be rolling down.
That's really cool. It's
really cool. Again, I mean, they've got some really interesting examples on their website. This is kind of beta, though. It is beta. Yeah. I mean, the whole idea of seed funding and some of their examples on their website are kind of basic, but the concept behind it is really cool.
It feels like HDR, right? When HDR first came out and everyone started doing HDR everything, and then it went from like looking good to looking cartoonish, and it looked horrible, and then everyone hated it, and now kind of HDR is kind of back, but just in a different light, being able to pull many extra stops of light out of an image by using HDR, but doing it properly now. So
now it's more enhancing your image,
instead of making it into the quote unquote HDR kind of look. So
right,
it's very, very neat. I like it.
Yeah. So you can get in, create an account, test it out, get some sample prints done. Again, interesting item to add to your client product list. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So just recently we heard about Nikon bringing in automatic autofocus lens calibration, or as they call it, AF fine tuning, which is kind of interesting. They're bringing it to their D5 as well as their D500 bodies. And looking through it, it's kind of interesting, right? What they're doing or trying to do with it.
Yeah. They're basically, a lot of the higher end DSLR bodies give you the ability to do these adjustments, these auto calibration adjustments for your autofocus, to allow you to sharpen it up. Right. Your whole thing with your focus pyramid and stuff. I mean, that's the concept behind it. That's the pain point. That's the need. So Nikon is kind of taking the idea of having to do it manually to the next level and putting it in body and letting the body do it.
Right.
Which is an interesting concept. Again, interesting in theory.
Right.
But in practical usage, I'm really not sure how this is all going to pan out.
Yeah. So, we've seen it actually, done and in use. And it works and it doesn't work and it kind of works. And the idea here, guys, is that, like a DSLR, you have like a secondary, you have like a phase detection type of element that's right behind the mirror, and you have a discrepancy usually. You have this variance between the mirror and, where your sensor is, and that produces either back focus or front focus. And by having autofocus lens calibration or AF fine tuning, it allows you to correct for that variance. So for example, you might have one lens that might be plus 12, where you might have another lens that'll be -8 to be able to get it exactly right. So when I say exactly right, that means when you go and lock up, let's say on your model's eyes, and you see the little green square and you hear the beep, when you go and look at that picture after the fact, her eyes are tack sharp, exactly where the camera thought that the autofocus should capture it, right, on that plane, that linear plane. That's where it captured it, and not in front of it or behind it. Because if it did, that means you'll get like the ear in focus instead of the eyes, or maybe the tip of the nose, and that just ruins the image. You can throw it out. So what they're saying is, we have a new method that will kind of do like a hybrid of this. So we know that mirrorless technology is usually better because you're actually capturing that autofocus on the sensor instead of right behind the flappy, as we call it, that mirror banging around in there, which shouldn't be there anymore after all these years, but it's still there. So you're capturing right on the sensor. So you end up with a little bit better or a little bit more accurate autofocus. Now, can it be off? Yes, I know that it can be off because, I've seen it happen with the Sony, the Alpha A7S2 as well as the R2. They were slightly off, but they do allow for calibration. A lot of these cameras now today do for this purpose. Now, What's interesting here is they are allowing you to do it automatically by just simply clicking a button. And what it's doing is it's flipping up that mirror and now going into live view mode. Now, we know if you're a Canon or Nikon, either way, live view flips up that mirror and allows you to capture what you see right onto that sensor. So it's using that information for your contrast detection compared to phase detection to get that specific, lock up with that specific spot. The problem here, guys, is when you do it, you're still at the mercy of the camera to get it right. And what I've seen, on many times now that people have tried it, it's slightly off. Sometimes it'll come up as a plus 15, sometimes a plus 12. Well, which is right? The bottom line is if you have some type of, let's say, a focus pyramid or some other autofocus lens calibration tool and you do it in studio, you could still use this technology, but just get it right. Just, set it up, make sure, your X and Y axis is set up right. Then you finally your Z, and you know that it's right when you leave. What they're trying to do is allow you to be able to do it in the field. But why do that? So I don't really get it. I mean, they're trying to make it more simplistic because the camera manufacturers know that it's important, but what are we gaining? What are we gaining by this?
Right. We know the camera manufacturers think it's important because they know that their stuff is out of whack. That's the whole point of incorporating this adjustment in the first place. So Nikon's trying to take it to the next level and kind of make it, a one-click, make it easier to do it and say, we know things are off a little bit. Now just hit this button and it will help to compensate for that.
Right.
And that's fine. I mean, that's, it's technology progression. I mean, that's what's going to happen. They're going to try and do this. Is it going to be 100% accurate? I mean, a lot of it is subjective anyway, right? Even doing it manually using a tool, it's subjective.
Sure.
But I think it's a good starting point. But if you really are that concerned about your autofocus point, I think you're still going to need to go in and do it manually to make sure it's right on. It's just, you're relying on the computer to do it, and it's just not going to be exactly right every time. It can't be.
Yeah. You get that variance, and it just changes.
That's right.
You have, like I said, plus 15 one time and then plus 12 another time. So we'll see what happens with it. Hopefully all camera bodies end up with autofocus lens calibration built into them. And all the new ones do.
It may even be something that can be updated in a firmware too. I mean, there was some people chatting about that online as well. And, will Nikon do it? Will they roll it out into other models? I mean, maybe they can, maybe they can't. It may be hardware dependent. But, it's interesting, and it's certainly worth checking out, just at least as a starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. So the D5 has it, and now the D500 have it. So
that's right.
I'm sure if it does well, they'll constantly make it better and better, and they'll introduce it into all of their camera bodies as time goes by. And hopefully, all the cameras eventually will just simply have it built in, so you can literally make the changes as need be. So we'll see what happens. I know it's been probably about 2-3 years that it's been out, and they're slowly kind of migrating to that capability or functionality built in. So we'll see what happens.
Right.
So anyways, we need to get out of here, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So if our listeners and viewers want to connect with you outside of the show, what's the best way for them to reach you?
All right, guys, find me over at Twitter, and that's at Joseph Cristina, and that's Cristina without an H.
Yes, and you can connect with me on Twitter. It's at Trevor Curran.
That's right, guys. We are out of here for yet another week. You can get all the show notes by visiting digitalphotographycafe.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/DPhotoCafe. And we'll see you next week.
You've been watching the Digital Photography Cafe show with Trevor Curran and Joseph Cristina. Subscribe to our YouTube channel with any compatible device by visiting youtube.com/DPhotoCafe. Be sure to subscribe to our audio feed through iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Xbox Music apps, or through RSS. Visit digitalphotographycafe.com for show notes and to connect with your hosts.